So you're dealing with venue stuff, union stuff, artists interaction from Queen Latifah, Kanye, just these big names that we never seen around us. And all of a sudden, they want to pay homage to him. It's like putting on a concert in the middle of trying to grieve for the loss of your loved one.
Welcome to Music Career Therapy, brought to you by artistmanagers.io. Whether you're just starting out or looking for new ways to grow your existing career, thanks for joining us on Music Career Therapy. If you enjoyed today's podcast, feel free to send me an email at hello@artistmanagers.io. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Our guest today is Dion Liverpool, also known as Rasta Root. Dion has been the manager for Phife and former manager with A Tribe Called Quest. He was the executive producer of Forever, Phife's posthumous album that came out in 2022. He's also tour manager for Dwelle and has been a brand marketing designer with Vans for Tribe Called Quest. And he's done a ton of sync licensing work with songs featured on ABC, Disney, BET, Netflix, and other major networks. He's also a professor of hip-hop composition at Emory University in Atlanta. And thanks for joining us, Dion.
Hey, thanks. That's a very illustrious career I have there, according to you.
And I stole it from you, so thanks for sharing.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me, though.
Yeah. I know that you've worked with Phife and Tribe Called Quest for quite a while. It's safe to say they're your best-known client?
Yes, correct. That's correct.
How did you meet? You started working with Phife early, so what's the story of how you guys came together?
It's really an interesting story, and I was telling my friend it yesterday because we're working on like a documentary. But I've always been a fan of Tribe. I went to Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania, and my sister would pick me up from school to go home an hour away in Maryland. So on the way home, she would have in her little Sprint, I think it was a Chevy Sprint, she would have a cassette player in there, and she's like, check out this new cassette that Tribe has. And I think it might have been still the first album, actually, I believe, first or second album. And I kind of fell in love with them as I did with all the other artists from that era. You know what I mean? Fast forward to 1994. I had graduated in 93, but in 94, the Gettysburg College had called me back to interview Tribe at my school because they had come back for like a spring fling kind of festival situation. And I had been on the radio at Gettysburg, so they thought I'd be one of the better people to interview them, which is pretty interesting. And so I drove up from Maryland to Gettysburg and then interviewed them on a radio station. And that was my first contact with them in person, not knowing that 4 years later, I would meet Phife officially in Atlanta and start working with him shortly thereafter. So I call that side of my life the hip-hop fairy tale. You know?
I can see why.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. I've been a fan as well for a while. I just always remembered singing I Left My Wallet in El Segundo all the time with my
No, for sure.
So when you started working with Phife, what were the early conversations like? How did you guys build a vibe and get things rolling?
I mean, to be honest with you, the main vibe we had was because both our parents were from Trinidad and Tobago and our grandparents and our lineage. And so we kind of had that connection as far as the accents and things our grandmothers would say and our moms would say that were funny. Not funny to them, but hilarious to us, you know? And so that's where I wish it was music initially, but it really was the cultural connection that really kind of brought us together. And I think we both felt comfortable, and more so him because he had come out of a situation with his group where, he felt slighted by the industry, if you will. So he didn't have many friends at the time and was very weary of people. And I think culturally, that's what brought us together. And then from there, musically, we just started hanging out, and he'd come over and we'd rehearse for the shows I was doing for him, or we'd get together and work on beats and go get donuts, come back, work on more beats and just hang out. We just started just hanging out a lot, and on top of that, being a New Yorker, a true New Yorker, Phife didn't drive. So whenever he needed a ride somewhere, I realized this recently. I was like, wait a minute, I was his Uber before Uber. He's like, yo, can you take me to the pharmacy? I don't have a car. Okay, sure. And I drive down to his house and take him. So we just developed a fast-tracked organic relationship, I'll say.
That's awesome. With your family cultures, your shared cultures, you guys didn't know each other. Did your parents connect or anything like that? Or
No. The only connection there would be is that his father was from the same side of town where my mother lived. It was an area called Arima, but there was no like interaction at all. They're a little old. They never knew each other, and we had moved out of Trinidad. Well, my parents had moved out of Trinidad to Canada his parents had moved to New York, so there was
Got it. Yeah.
that too.
Yeah. Tribe has an interesting management structure where you've got 3 managers essentially. Is that right?
I mean, 3 or more, honestly. Like there's particular members that had a few managers that did different tasks for them. I can't say it was challenging for me, only because working with Fife was my first foray into management. So I didn't know anything else but chaos, as far as working with them as a soloist, a well-known artist that then became independent, that then had to rediscover who they were as an artist and kind of build their name again. That became inherent to us because that's all we could do. And then when he got back with the group, I was thrust into this chaotic situation, but it didn't seem chaotic because probably more so than anything, I was enamored because that's one of my favorite groups. I get to sit and work with them. So you take what they give you because you're kind of like just excited to be around. And as you're doing that, you're learning the ropes and you're learning the nuances of working with the different members and their own management and how that structure can work. But it was also new to everybody because before that, Tribe had one manager, which was Chris Lighty, and God rest his soul. And so it was new for everybody, So with that comes a lot of bumps and bruises and allowances and grace, a lot of grace, understanding that, you have like 3 core members, a 4th that comes around, and then you have 3 managers, and some of them have 2 and 3. You know what I mean? Honestly, it was a lot of people, a lot going on. And luckily for Fife and I, it was just me and him when that happened. And so our unit was very like concise and not that it was messy on their side, but it was easy to keep everything in order on our side. It was a yes or no. It wasn't ask so-and-so, then ask so-and-so. It was me calling him, you want to do this? Yes? No? Okay, fine. That kind of thing.
So when you say chaotic, do you have any stories of what chaos was really like as you were doing that?
It's a good question. Literally communication, you have to imagine having a conference call using, I think it was free conference at the time, trying to get 8 people that aren't used to having conference calls on a call together. You know what I mean? That in itself was a monumental task, and it required deep dives into everybody's schedule, when time zones. And so, like I said, I guess because it was all new to us, we made it work. And the chaos just comes more so from the magnitude of the group's impact and the magnitude of the group that then gets reinserted into the culture, actively doing shows, offers to always perform, offers to record music, offers to have your music synced into video games and stuff. And so it came at us fast, when we did the show in 2004 at Street Scene in San Diego, and then that buzz hit, like, wait a minute, Tribe's doing shows. Then the offers started coming, and then the money started being thrown around and lowballing here. And then, you ask for more here. And it's just like, it became this the chaos was like, almost like, imagine, okay, with your startup, it hits way before you're ready for it to hit, it hits and you don't even have the infrastructure to handle what's happening. So that entails, just to be honest with you, us going to Canada to do a show in Toronto, you're doing merch. You're coming across the border with tens of thousands of dollars in merch money. Those kind of things where you don't even know, you have to then, before you fly out, go to FedEx at night and ship all, like I'm talking about me, ship all the merch that wasn't sold back to the States, customs forms for 12 boxes, and we just did the grunt work. We did what we had to do, but we didn't have the infrastructure to say, there's someone that's handling merch specifically. Yeah. We would do the share with the venue, and then we would handle the overall logistics. So to me, that's one of the most chaotic parts of it, because I couldn't even enjoy going back to my home country because I was working the whole time,
Yeah. That sounds like many managers' experiences, but with many, many managers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like when you're managing, you're doing everything, every little detail. Sound checking for Ali sometimes, setting up his CDJs, pressing play before they perform, then running off stage, and he comes on, like you're doing everything,
When you first started working together with them, were there things that you saw right away that needed improving, or were you just...
Yeah, I think a lot of things I saw that didn't make sense or weren't logical to me because of being young in the industry and young in the group, a lot of things sometimes I didn't speak up early on because you don't want to rock the boat because it was a volatile situation anyway. At any given moment, it could just shut down just because of the dynamic of the group and their history. And so us as managers had to work really closely to make sure everybody was coddled in the right way and nurtured in the right way and guided in the right way so that all those three moving parts could work, in sync versus pulling against each other. And don't get me wrong, there were times where they did pull against each other. That's just natural human nature. But we tried our best to make sure that we were constantly in communication and constantly working towards sharing what we knew of our artists that would allow the other managers to make decisions to help, get around certain difficult conversations when it came sometimes to finances, when it came to how the show is run sometimes, And so that was challenging, but it was also a study in like human nature and community.
Well, it does seem like managers are often taking the role of both peacemaker and knee breaker at the same time.
No, 100%. You're totally right. 100%. You got to know when to speak up and advocate for your artist. And the other times you have to know when to tell the artist, you know what? It's not worth fighting this battle right now. We're happy we're here. Let's be happy we're here. And let's just do what we have to do and go home safe,
Yeah. When Fife passed away in 2016, he had a ton of material he'd been recording for an unfinished record that you executive produced. Mm-hmm. How did that unfold, and how did you deal with losing your close friend and client?
I mean, it definitely, I find myself being thrust into these unknown situations, like very unique. Like the first album I ever executive produced was a posthumous album. Like my life has never been conventional in that sense, where my first foray into management is one of the biggest 90s groups. It's like, it's always this very unique. And I think it goes back to, honestly, like I was born in Fort St. John, British Columbia, which is like mile zero almost on the Alaska Highway in Canada on the West Coast. And it was a small oil town / Native American town. And my mom told me that I was the first Black baby born there. And when I was born, everybody in the hospital came to see this Black baby. So again, born into something unique where I was the first of something, and so my life's just always been like these random things that make me show that everybody's unique and I'm definitely unique, and just to embrace it, So coming to this album, because we started working on it when he was alive and with us, I knew what was going on. It, not like I was just given this hard drive and it's like, what do I do with it now? I knew where stuff was for the most part, and I knew the direction of where he wanted to go musically. I knew what he wanted the cover art to look like, loosely. I knew what his liner notes would look like. And so luckily enough, we worked hard and long on it where we had a blueprint in place. And so with him not being here, it was more so just missing the final say of, yeah, that's dope, that isn't dope. But we have to kind of just trust our gut, our instinct, the family, the estate, myself, to say, you know what, he would like this, or you know what, this could be better, or you know what, this is not working, we don't like this, let's try this again. And they would tell me, I would have to take the criticism sometimes of, well, remember he said so-and-so, or da-da-da-da-da, and you're right, because I can't remember everything. But like I said, it was a very unique process that only after going through it and sitting back when I have nothing to do and realizing what a huge, daunting task it was, that I don't know if you can tell somebody how to do that. I think you're in it and you just complete it and you just go through it, but you don't even know where the end zone is, or if you're really honoring your friend, and you just have to be guided by, I found myself being guided by spirit and being guided by just feeling my gut. I've kind of always trusted my gut. And so I'd sit back and be like, that's not right, or that's dope, or let's try this, or you know what, let's scrap that and let's do this because he would want it this way,
Yeah. What happened for you when you found out that he passed? How did you navigate that, both emotionally and from a manager side?
I think the ironic part of that is the night that I found out that he transitioned, my best friend, DJ Fudge, was at my house, and I was letting him hear all the music we had. I was letting him see the videos we had shot, Nutshell and then Nutshell Part 2. And we were just on my couch, just watching stuff on TV, excited, like right in the middle of the excitement. And then I realized, I was like, wait a minute, he didn't answer my text this morning. And my last text to him was about a song on the album, a feature, and he never replied. And I was like, that's weird. And we kept talking about the music and stuff. And then I get the call, like in the middle of us being the height of my excitement of my friend saying, yo, this album's going to be dope. You know what I mean? Getting that call is also like super unique. And like, what are the chances of that? Like I could have been sleeping or, I was literally talking about this man's album. And I find out from his wife that he passed on, and so that was a shock, obviously, and the magnitude of who he was in the industry and who he was culturally made it difficult to have a quiet time because you're getting texts all day long, 300, 400 texts about him. When you want to turn away and not think about it, it's everywhere. It's on TMZ, call my mom's house. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Like they found my mom's house, and that's just everywhere I turned. It was just like chaos, and the funny thing is, in the midst of the chaos, typically I would seek refuge at my mom's house, but I think it was too much for her. I could tell like she didn't know what to say or how to comfort me in this time. And so I ended up speaking to the managers, and I think they realized the difficulty. And this is in a few days of him passing, and they ended up flying me up to Jersey to be with all of them, which was amazing. You know what I mean? To be at Q-Tip's house and all their friends and his friends, and just to be around his close circle of friends. And at first I was like, why can't my family give me this? Not that I was mad about it, but I understood like that wasn't their role at the time. They could support me as their son and brother and nephew and uncle. But as far as like the magnitude of what had happened and the impact in my life, I needed to just be around his people. It needed to be around Fife's people. And that worked out perfectly. I went for a few days and came back and then went back for the funeral and the celebration. In the midst of him transitioning, I was charged by the group with kind of not knowing it was called producing, but I was producing his memorial at the Apollo Theater, in the midst of my best friend being, and of course I'm going to do it because I want to honor him, but it's also like a lot. So we have, you're dealing with venue stuff, union stuff, flights for people, the accountant releasing money for artists, and all that stuff, the PR of it. How do you create a celebration that is for his fans, but also the artists interaction from Queen Latifah, Kanye, just these big names that we never seen around us. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden they want to pay homage to him. And it was great, but it's also overwhelming. And that's not even like the degree. There's also like, you're talking to like Mayor Dinkins' assistant, these specific conversations. He can only be there for 20 minutes. He can't stand. And that's one person. Then you have to deal with Angela Wimbush coming from Detroit. And it's like putting on a concert in the middle of trying to grieve for the loss of your loved one. And so it's super overwhelming, but it builds character. You know what I mean? It builds character, and it lets you know your limits. I don't think anybody would, and anybody would understand like what that is like unless you go through it, Even at his funeral, I was still working on those components for the memorial. They had a fan engagement where at some park in Queens, I think it was St. Albans Park, they gave out 500 T-shirts to fans. And if you had a T-shirt, you could come to the Apollo, all those things. So I wasn't even truly present at the actual, not the funeral, the viewing. At the viewing, I actually left the room just to watch it on a monitor and be on my phone doing what I had to do, because I wanted to make sure that we sent him home the right way, And I put aside, not even consciously put aside my own feelings and my own, how I felt about it to just make sure everybody else was fine, But finally, when I got back to Atlanta, I remember I was on my laptop still working away. No one asked me to. I was just in that mode. And I just remember something just like pulling my eyes shut. Like I remember my eyes just getting just like heavy and being like, someone grabbed my lids and went like this. And I slept for like 12 hours. Like I finally was able to sleep, but I was trying to keep going, but something stopped me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Had my laptop on my lap and I fell asleep right there and then went in my bed after. But like, yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody to like have to work through someone's passing, like real, and be pulling pictures for the obituary and for the pamphlet, and just you're surrounded constantly by this person who already has like a bigger than life character and is known by everybody. and you're dealing with answering questions and how and what and where, and there's a lot, man. There's a lot. So honestly, going through that made the album maybe easier, because time had passed. Maybe, I don't know, now that I think about it, that was probably the most difficult thing, was the Apollo celebration.
Yeah. Was making the record cathartic for you? Did that help you with processing?
I think once I pressed send, then I sent it to the label, or we transferred to the label with the masters. I think I felt a huge sense of relief. I think without knowing it, that was part of my grieving, to complete and send the album, not put it out, but just send it, get it out of my hands. That was, I think, lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. And I didn't know until after I pressed it, I was like, whoa, I have all this free time now. What can I do? And I was on Amazon buying crap I didn't need, like, just because I had just all this free time. I spent most of my 6-7 years in this room kind of orchestrating stuff for his album and working on the drive. And so I think it definitely was therapeutic without me knowing it was, but I think getting it done was the completion of therapy. It wasn't just doing it. It was getting it to the finish line and giving it to the world.
For most artists, that's true anyway, but I can only imagine when you have someone of Fife's legacy and just everything that he represents to so many people, that you're carrying that ball and that torch for such a long time.
Yeah. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about, hey, I can't pass away before this is done. Like, I can't, I thought about it, like I was more careful, like being around driving, because I felt like it would not get out if I didn't finish it, So anything could happen after I finished and turned it in, but I was very careful and mindful of like my health and all those things that keep me alive, because I had to finish this,
Well, at least you didn't have to drive him around as being the Uber driver for a little while.
Exactly. Exactly.
I know now you're also tour managing with Dwele. Are you also doing additional management for other artists?
Yeah, I think, like, I've known Dwele. I met Dwele through 5 years ago, my first big tour in the States. One of my first big tours in the States was with Dwele 5 and a couple other groups. And so they're kind of fam to me. I've worked with them probably since 2008, 2009, in between working with Fife. And so that's more of a tour manager, road manager thing. So it's less responsibility on a day-to-day. It's more so leading up to advancing the show, when we on the ground, getting the van, make sure everybody's safe, collecting the money, all that kind of stuff. But as far as managing other artists, I haven't taken on any other management roles per se. I do more mentoring. Younger artists, I like to mentor them and make sure they're on the right path and they get what I didn't have and maybe what Fife didn't have, as a resource of intelligence and information. And I think it's important now, especially with artists coming up now and how fast music is moving. A lot of times artists forget about the education component and being smart about your business. So I want to make sure that I help them grow those tools, including being a professor at Emory. Is I want to give them that opportunity that I didn't have.
That's one of the things we focus on a lot, is just trying to get artists to understand their business. And it's why I've spent a lot of my work getting artists connected with managers. What are the first things that you try and make sure they're aware of and focus on to get their career moving?
I think the first thing I would have them do is answer the question, do you want to be just the king, or are you okay being the kingmaker? And I say that only because I feel like a lot of artists play the dangerous game of pouring everything into being an artist and time and money. And then the chances of making it are fairly slim, statistically. And so I ask them that only to give them a point of reference and reality, that you understand that this is not guaranteed. You understand that anything I tell you, you may not even be able to use what I tell you. You may not get to the point of being able to use it. So are you okay with that? Or what's your backup plan? What are you doing besides being an artist? I have a friend who's older. He's an artist. And I ask him the question all the time, like, you're getting older. It's, what else are you going to do? But luckily, he's also a hairstylist and just opened a new salon. So that's great, because that can fuel your passion. And part of it to me is the journey. It's not the destination. So if you feel good about being an artist and you're making music and being creative, the end goal to me shouldn't be putting the music out and getting success. It's enjoying your creative process, enjoying what you created. And I think even with Fife's album, I never had a fear of acceptance. I never had a fear of whether people would like it or not. Not because I thought it was that great. It's just because I think the exercise that God gave me was completing this task to the best of my ability. That was a success meter, you know? And so I try to like keep level-headed and keep a sense of realism for people coming into the industry, that it's not easy. It's harder and harder every day. There's less and less money for most people, and the few that do make it, it's very few. And so I don't want, it's not like bearing bad news, but there's a reality to it that I want to make sure that they're aware of. But you can still pursue your dreams, but understand at some point, if it doesn't work out the way you saw it working out, what's your pivot going to be?
Yeah, it seems like, especially in hip hop, from what I've seen, that the more successful artists are those who are entrepreneurial. I had lunch right around Christmas time with E40 a couple years ago. 40 had just released a new tequila, and like there's all, he's just like brand after brand, just throwing it out there. And I've seen so many people inspired by that. Is that part of also, I mean, do you follow that philosophy too?
Well, I definitely think once you've achieved the success in music, those opportunities will come, opportunities to rebrand and brand yourself and use your brand to pitch other products or partner with companies to further your brand. I think that's once you've made a name for yourself, like an E40, who's obviously a legend in the industry. I think as artists are coming up and growing their artistry, they should also view themselves as a brand, So when you get to that point where you have those opportunities, even if it's the smallest opportunity, you're approaching like a brand, not just getting paid for a gig. It's like, this is Rastrut the brand, not just me DJing,
Yeah, which leads me to that question. You're a DJ also, so that's a business unto itself. How do you approach that? And for those who are DJing, what do you find the things that make you successful?
Yeah, I think having a clear idea of who you are or your identity in DJing, whether it's musically or just your look and image. From the school I come from, it's technically being super sharp with your ability to mix or scratch or whatever your forte is, while building your brand. A lot of DJs, I think, these days focus more on the aesthetic and the optics of what their logo looks like and how they look in pictures. But that doesn't always translate when people on the dance floor reading the crowd, be able to kind of like send your message to them in a clear, concise way and be sharp about it. It's easier to get into the DJing world right now because it's technology and it's cheaper. And so you have a lot of people that were customers at one point, now they're DJs, literally, like at one point they would come and see me DJ. Next thing you know, they're like asking DJ questions, and it is what it is. I think you'll see the same thing with, I'm not sure if you've seen that app. Is it Lenza with the AI? Where people are uploading their pictures and these AI are doing these art.
Yep.
I'm sure like artists feel a way about that, how we felt about controllers and CDJs and iPad DJs, iPod DJs. So it's all cyclical. But if you have established your brand and established your presence and established who you are as a DJ and you know who that is, you can then go on and pitch it and sell it and then kind of grow your name like that. But there's no sure way to do it. What I would tell you might be different than what another DJ would tell you. But for me, it's more like the culture and the art of DJing is what the foundation is. The passion for me is there. So even though I get paid to do it, I love doing it. I really love doing it. So it doesn't feel like work.
I was just reading something about that similarly, that for the artists who are now competing with AI, that connection with fans and connections with the people you are working with is the thing that is going to differentiate, is that it's almost going to be more about your relationship as a human being as opposed to the technical wizardry that an AI will likely run circles around everybody within the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. That's one thing I don't think they can duplicate just yet, is the human feel, luckily. The swing of life, I guess you can call it. Luckily, but who knows what will happen the next 20, 30 years. Hopefully I won't have to worry about it then, but you just never know. All I can say as far as like new DJs, coming up is really just like master your craft. Whatever you decide your craft is, master it to the best of your ability. I think spending those 10,000 hours on something is very important. I wouldn't keep track of it, but just as much time as you can, spend it perfecting the art. You can always be better. I don't think there's ever a point where you're like, damn, I'm good, and just you're good there. You know what I mean? I think you should always be striving to be better and to do things differently. And maybe there's a different way of approaching the craft that can make you a better musician / artist.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us here today on Music Career Therapy, Dion. And it's been great learning more about your roots and your career. Do you have any last words of wisdom you'd like to impart to the artists and managers of the world?
Yeah, I'll just say, like, definitely outlets like this are very important. A lot of times we have information and knowledge that you might share with one person or not share at all, but it's good to have these questions being asked, because sometimes you don't think about these things. It's just inherent in your being. But when you're asked, it challenges you to really think through the process of what your body feels and to be able to express it. So I appreciate the questions you asked, and it had me thinking. And I never paralleled being the first Black baby to be possibly a reason why these very unique things have happened to me in the life that happened today. So
thank you for joining us, and it's been a pleasure chatting with you.
For sure.
Our guest today was Dion Liverpool, manager for Fife and A Tribe Called Quest. Tune in for our next episode where we'll be talking with Don Barger, former manager for The National, Perfume Genius, The Antlers, and the Decemberists, Walkmen, to name just a few. If you enjoyed today's podcast, feel free to send me an email at hello@artistmanagers.io. We'd love to hear from you.